Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hey there, this is Kelly, and you're listening to In Her Voice, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here with me today. Man, do I have a treat for you. My good friend Sonja Wieck is on In Her Voice today, and we are talking about toughness and enoughness. I cannot even begin to tell you what an amazing conversation this is. It is so fantastic. I've known Sonja for a very, very long time, and she recently launched her podcast, which is called Tales of Toughness, and I thought, I want to have her on the show to talk about this idea of toughness. And then as we got going, we realized it's also about enoughness. It's about feeling worthy, and it's about understanding who we are and owning all of our story. I am so excited to bring this to you. Let me tell you a little bit about Sonja. Sonja Wieck underwent a life-affirming transformation, taking her from an average stay-at-home mom who wanted to strive for more to a top Ironman triathlete with nothing but passion, drive, and determination. She can be seen leading her group of 3 men on Team Iron Cowboy on Mark Burnett's competition show World's Toughest Race Eco Challenge Fiji, which is hosted by Bear Grylls, and you can see that on Amazon Prime. At the ripe age of 40, she is a 6-time Kona Ironman World Championship qualifier and competitor, and has participated in 18 competitions, all Ironman distance, coming in second place at Kona Ironman in her age group at the time, 35 to 39. Her mission is simple: to encourage men and women of all ages that you can push yourself to do the impossible, but if you strive for success and achievement for your own ego, you will be left unfulfilled. I love this woman. I love this conversation. Let's get right to it with Sonja Wieck. Well, hello, longtime friend Sonja Wieck. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kelly. Thanks for having me on today. I'm really excited to be here.
I am thrilled to have you, and you've been having lots of adventures since we last spoke. And just to fill everyone who's listening in, if they don't already know you, I have known Sonja for years and years.
Like a really long time, maybe almost 10 or more.
Maybe even more. I don't know, but we used to be on the same triathlon team, which is how we met initially. And then when I did my Ironman, you were my coach. You were my triathlon coach.
I sure was. It was a very enjoyable experience.
It was so fun. And I was so glad to have you supporting me. And since then, you've gone on to do even more amazing things. Most recently, you just, I guess it was last year, but the rest of us just got to see this, that you completed the World's Toughest Race Eco Challenge in Fiji.
That's right. Yeah. And it was luckily filmed, and it's up on Amazon Prime Video, 10 episodes. You can go see all the carnage and watch all the stories of the racers. It was a lot of pain and a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, and I watched all of them, Kel and I both, my husband, and we love stuff like that anyway. I mean, we would watch that anyway. That is right in line with the things that we like to watch. And then to have someone that I know personally on it just magnified my experience. I felt like I was there with you. It was so great. But today I thought that we could talk about toughness and enoughness, because I feel that those are 2 themes that go hand in hand and that you've experienced personally in your life. And as we all are still experiencing the lessons of what it means to be enough and how best to use toughness. So I thought maybe we could start with, what does toughness mean to you?
Oh, that's such a great question. It's such a broad topic. This concept of toughness, I think, really what it means to me is that I am showing up authentically, owning my experience, and being willing to feel my feelings and experience the experience without giving up. And that can be physically, it makes a lot of sense when you're, say, looking at a wall that you've got to climb over the next 4.5 hours, right? But emotionally or mentally and also spiritually, the same sort of applies. So I think toughness can kind of be a broad range of experiences. And I've been blessed with a kind of body where physical toughness is kind of second nature to me. It's a little bit of an autopilot for me, but mental and spiritual toughness are more in development for me. So I'm kind of in this place right now where I'm taking one of the areas that comes pretty easy to me, and I'm trying to see how I can extend that into other areas of my life. This kind of concept of moving, feeling, owning, being authentic, moving through, not giving up.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think when people think of toughness, they automatically go to that physical piece. But I really feel like what's way more challenging and way more important is what you said, like the emotional and spiritual, that mental toughness and spiritual toughness that we need to just live life, because life can be challenging.
Life is definitely challenging. And I have always understood in the context of my own body, soul, mind, that I was given a really strong body and a quite fragile emotional system. And so when I was training for really big things, I never broke physically. I always broke emotionally before I broke physically. And so this concept of toughness and how do I extend toughness through the other sides of myself has been kind of at the forefront of my experiences since I've been running around being athletic.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what came to me as you said that about how your body is not the thing that breaks down. That's not true for myself.
Yeah.
I wish it was, because I feel like there's a lot more glory in physical toughness than there is in emotional and spiritual toughness.
That's right.
And, I think that in all of the years that I did triathlon, I wanted that so much. And I wanted to have that validation. Like, oh, well, if I can do this, then I'm enough. If I can do this fast, or, this well, then I'm enough. And I wonder if even at the level that you were when you were racing triathlon and knowing that your body can go to these places that most people can't, is that almost a way that you can numb out the need for toughness in other areas?
Yeah, yes and no. First off, our society really, we really love on people who have physical toughness.
Right, yeah. Sports heroes.
Every sport, right. And we do, because it's I think it's like a more in-your-face showing of a thing. If you, I don't know, you do the moguls or you do the figure skating or whatever, we see the physical toughness, but the mental and spiritual, emotional, spiritual, mental, those three toughness is invisible. It's invisible. And so when people are struggling on that level, no one knows. That's why, we're seeing a lot of mental health crises in the sports arena, and everyone's going, I never knew. Because there's a privacy and a silence to our spiritual and emotional toughness, whereas our physical toughness is just on display all the time. So what did you ask me?
Well, I was wondering if sometimes,
It's a crutch.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
use it to numb out a little bit.
I think I personally used it to think if I achieved these things, I would be okay.
Yeah.
I would be okay. And the people that I was trying to impress would love me. The people I was trying to impress would open more doors for me that would allow me to have more adventures. That's been a big, like, kind of soul purpose of mine, is this concept of adventure. I love adventure. I love what it does for me, all three, mind, body, soul. And I've many times tried to impress people to open doors for myself. So my soul was kind of hustling through achievement to try to open up more possibilities, which was if you're going to hustle for enoughness, at least hustle for your soul's purpose, right?
Yeah.
But there were definitely times where I was putting a lot of people higher up as a priority in my life in terms of who I wanted to impress, because I thought that they could open doors for me, or I thought that if they liked me, they would help me kind of move to the next place in my life, which I didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. And there were also times where I realized that I wasn't going to get to the next level physically if I didn't address some of the emotional and spiritual sides to myself. So I've seen it both ways. I've seen it as a way to kind of hustle for enoughness or hustle to open doors, but I've also seen it as a catalyst to point out where I'm stuck. Because again, I wouldn't physically run into the wall, but I would emotionally. And then that would always bring up these questions inside my mind of, well, what are we missing here? It's preventing my physical from getting any further if I don't address my mental toughness. Mm-hmm. So it's been both.
Yeah, I love that. I know for me, when I was really pushing my body, that it brought me to a point of recognizing that my quest to do, to meet these sort of like arbitrary goals that I was setting physically was really about me honoring that I am enough. Like, no matter, what my finish time was.
Yeah.
Or how many miles I ran in a year, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like all of the things. And I see, I see people on Instagram. It's like, if they don't post their workout, I wonder if they think they actually did it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's this,
It's
proving,
really hard.
Yeah. Like proving over and over that they're enough. And what I found for me was, it was really me having to say to myself that I was enough. And I think that you had a similar kind of experience when you were racing Kona. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk about that and talk about how that brought you to where you are now.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah. So I got into triathlon after the birth of my daughter, trying to lose baby weight, and found the sport and just absolutely went 100% full dive in. And the first time I made it to Kona in 2010, I had a great debut at for your listeners, that's the Ironman World Championships in Kona, Hawaii. And I competed as an amateur in my age group and came in, I think that first year, 15th. Which to me was the most amazing debut because I didn't even find the race expo that year. It was so new. I couldn't even figure out, I found myself to the starting line, and that was about it that year. And at the end of the race, I had such an amazing time. I remember saying to myself, I just want to go do that again tomorrow. So I knew there was a passion there and a light inside me, which usually means that I've got lessons in this experience. And it was interesting. I wrote up my blog report, and at the bottom of it, my coach at the time, he read through it, and he wrote as a comment at the bottom, I think you could win your age group at this race someday. That was his. It was like, great write-up. I think you could win your age group at this race someday. And because of where I was at in my life and how not enough I felt, I glommed onto that comment like it was going to solve all my problems. The fact that this guy I really respected thought this thing about me that I didn't think about myself, this big thing that I was so much more in his eyes than I was in my own. I hung on to that. And I spent 5 years of my life trying to win my age group at Ironman Hawaii, which when he put that there, I had no idea how hard of an ask that was. I mean, the sport was really popular. Everyone's trying to get to Kona and then get to Kona and be the best in the world, the best amateur in the world. You know, you're competing with people who are on EPO and have all day to train and have, you know, different physical gifts than I do. But I hung on to that goal because somebody believed in it for me, you know, while they literally typed on my blog. And I look back at that and think about, wow, what a pull that bit of affirmation had on me. It didn't come from within. It really came from somebody else seeing bigger for me. So 5 years later, still toiling away, I'd gone back to Kona every single year, which meant I'd qualify at a race, usually having to win my age group at an Ironman, and then I'd go back to Kona. My life revolved around Kona. It revolved around winning Kona. Or even as I figured out what a hard ask that was, even just getting on the podium, I was like, my goal was slipping from winning to like, geez, can I just get on the podium of this race and sort of be done with this huge goal? And in 2013, I was in great shape. I had a great race. I broke 10 hours and I got 6th in my age group. I would have been on the podium in every other age group, but I got 6th in mine, and I was actually the fastest girl to ever knock it on the podium in Kona. I went and looked. No one had ever gone 9:55 and not gotten on the podium as an amateur, but I did. And that was bittersweet, you know, because I'd had such an amazing race and done all these great things, but I still wasn't there. I still had something left to learn. And so between 2013 and 2014 is really the first time that I doubled down on sort of the emotional side of sport, the mental coaching, the sports psychology side. And I trained just as much as ever, but I added that layer in. And that got me to Kona in 2014, where I had another amazing race, and I got 2nd, which was definitely on the podium. It was really close to the top of the podium. And the girl who won is an amazing athlete, super talented. She's, you know, a really fast runner. She's got a lot of genetic gifts, and she works really hard, and she's been a world champion before. And I thought, geez, 2nd is probably about as good enough as this girl's ever going to get. Like, it felt like I won, honestly. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any of that, like, I got to come back next year and I got to beat her again, you know, or I got to try to win. I felt like, wow, this was so hard fought. This feels so satisfying. And went to the awards ceremony, had a great night, went home that night, went to bed. I woke up the next morning, and my umiki bowl, you get this big wooden bowl when you get on the podium. My umiki bowl was sitting on the nightstand. I wake up that morning, I'm maybe a little bit slightly hungover, and I look over at that bowl, and my first thought was, holy moly, it comes empty. It's empty. Like, the bowl's empty. It's such a perfect metaphor. I feel empty. I don't know why. That I know I felt like I basically won yesterday. You know, I felt satisfied, but it didn't satisfy something inside of me. And that kind of set me on a whole journey, because that was a really jarring thing. I thought I had done it all right, and I had unlocked all the secrets I need to unlock. And so I was going to feel a bit enlightened, and I felt the opposite of enlightened. I felt empty. Yeah.
Yeah. That really resonates with me as a former overachiever.
Yeah.
Right. It's this idea that, like, well, if I just do that thing, then I'm going to feel like I'm enough.
Then I'm going to feel like I'm enough.
If I just get that box checked, then I'm going to feel like I'm enough.
Yep. That's right. And I would not have said that was the truth while I was chasing the goal. You know, I was so committed to the goal. But the best thing that ever happened to me was that I got to the top, and I got to wake up that next morning and say, oh my gosh, it's not about that.
Yeah.
Because so many people, like, if I had said, I don't know, if I had been attached to winning, and I'd probably still be out there this year trying to still get the top spot on the podium. But the best thing that could have ever happened was that I felt like I got to the top, and then I got to have the day after.
Yeah. Well, so, in listening to this story, you would think that that was the cracking point, like where you sort of cracked open and you recognized, oh, wow, I've been going about this in a way that's not really serving me. Were you able to take it to the next step after that?
That was not the cracking point at all. So I still didn't understand achievement. And from that point forward, my coach had told me, you're not going to race Kona next year. You've been going 5 years in a row. You need a break if you're going to decide to go back or have different goals or whatever. I didn't understand at the time. I just felt like he wasn't letting me do my thing, because for 5 years I had been doing this one thing. And so I thought, okay, well then I'm going to build my coaching company really big. I had always coached athletes and had just a solo stable single, I was a coach. I coached my athletes. That was it. And it was like he was saying, I'm not going to let you achieve anymore. And even though I had this feeling of like, wow, left me feeling empty, it's really easy to think, well, then we better sign up for another race or we better find something else to achieve. I didn't quite understand the empty feeling, where it was coming from. So my thought was, maybe it's about service. I have learned so many lessons, and my lessons are just staying with my little cohort of athletes because no one was leaving. So I really didn't get any fresh blood in very often to teach or broaden my reach. And so I thought, well, the best way to teach and to serve is to expand my coaching business and kind of go for it. And that very quickly became another way to achieve. It became, now you're running a business, you've got revenue, you've got profit, you've got how many athletes you have, you've got how many coaches are underneath you. Inherent in that whole situation was just a whole bunch more achievement from where I was at with it. Could I have been in better alignment from the service point? I could have, but I wasn't. I wasn't ready for that yet. So that business had to grow. It had to be that thing. And then I got to a point in that business where everything came crashing down. And I had a mental health event in 2017 that pretty much rocked my entire existence and forced us to close the business in a week, in a month, basically, my husband. And I went down really hard, really deep. And then that was my cracking point. That was when I had to face everything, like why the achievement model in the first place, why the not enoughness in the first place, whereas all of that stemming from how was I trying to meet those needs for myself, and then what was missing and how was I going to move forward. And that was a really hard, icky, rough, dirty, muddy, painful experience.
Yeah. Well, because you're here, we know that you came through that.
Yeah.
Which is great. And I'm really curious, what were some of the tools and strategies you used during that time? Because I know you're not the only one who hits that cracking point. Like that's like you thought you got to the bottom, but no, there was a whole other bottom below that. What did you do to help your healing?
Yeah. Well, I was in crisis. So first step was getting stable. I was having quite a bit of suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, panic attacks. So the first step was just getting stable. So that was, for me, we had to get me into talk therapy right away. I was in 3 times a week for the first couple months because I was in pretty big crisis mode. So stabilizing was that first step for our family. My husband closed our business, but he took my phone and my computer because the inputs of the world, the feedback of the world were what was taking me down. I couldn't even have someone say like, hey, I'm praying for you. Like that felt like an expectation to me. Like, you've got this expectation that you're putting on me because you're praying for me. Like, please leave me alone. Please go away. I don't want your prayers. I don't want you to put any energy towards me. I needed to get like all the energy out because it all felt really heavy and full of expectation. So the phone went away, the computer went away. My husband pulled out a backup phone that we had and put 2 phone numbers on it. And for 4 months, I went to therapy. I walked on the beach with the dog. I quilted a lot, and did like hand needle work. I cooked. I took my daughter to school. I picked her up from school. I really like doubled down on just being present with my family as a mom. And I did a little bit of exercise every day, 30 to 60 minutes, no more. And that was kind of my MO. That was my like foundation while I got out of crisis mode, which I needed to have a lot of therapy to get myself like back grounded again. And then once that happened, which took a couple months, then we got to start working on the relationships in my life and kind of bringing relationships back in one at a time, very slowly, and really analyzing in therapy every relationship that I had and how I was showing up in that relationship and sort of where I was showing up well and not well. And so it was kind of just this very slow, measured approach while I pretty much did self-care 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and so once you were out of crisis, then really what I think this is like, it's like Ironman training, right? Like, but instead of going out and swimming, biking, running every day to prepare for this huge event, you're taking care of yourself and you're training for your emotional toughness and your mental toughness and your well-being that is beyond the physical.
Yeah.
And, really when I think about it, I think so many people recognize how important it is to like exercise every day.
Right.
But they disregard the importance of these self-care habits, whatever it looks like for you. For me, it's journaling and, meditating. For other people, it could be walking on the beach with your dog. Whatever that is for you, it is just as important.
Yeah.
And, did you approach it with the same sort of, I'm going to get this done attitude, or did you have to shift your paradigm?
Yeah, it was a total shift.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we don't realize as part of our culture right now is that there are foundations to mental health. Like there are foundations to physical health, and we cram those down everybody's throat daily, right? We all know we have to exercise. We need to eat healthy. We need to get sleep. There are sort of foundations for staying physically healthy, and you go to your annual checkups and you get your blood pressure taken, right? And you look at your cholesterol. There are all these sort of like steps that we have built into our culture to maintain physical health.
And markers too.
And when you shift that over to mental health, you can look at the parallels and realize that none of the foundation culturally is there. We don't have people do annual checkups. We don't have markers. We don't have mental health parity. Most of us don't even know that there are foundations that we can do every day to sort of protect our mental health, just like our physical health. We don't talk about them. There's a stigma to being, can you imagine if there was as big of a stigma to being physically unhealthy as there is to being mentally unhealthy?
Oh,
like if you were physically unhealthy, you couldn't talk about it. You had to go in hiding. Your access to healthcare was limited. When you sought care, you got a list of 10 people and 9 of them were booked. We don't.
Right. Yeah.
We have this whole culture that perpetuates mental instability right now. And
well, and going back to what we talked about earlier about the way that our society glorifies physical toughness.
Yep.
I mean, really, it's the same thing. It's just the
Yep.
other side of that coin, right? Like
yep.
when we value one thing more than all of the other things,
Yes.
there's a trickle down effect to that.
There is. There absolutely is. Yep. And so that's what we're facing. That's what each of us are facing. But here's what I've realized. There's a ton of us out there. Like, we are literally an army. Mm-hmm. And because of the way our culture is set up right now, we have to take care of each other.
Yeah.
We have to take care of each other. Until we can shift some of those paradigms, you know, we have to take it on our own shoulders to support other people in their mental health. It's just where we're at right now as a culture. So that's some of what I've learned coming out of my own struggles. More journeys need to be shared. More talk needs to be had about these things. We kind of have to bring it into the light as much as we can. And then we have to support people in the ways that we can.
100%. And that's a big reason why I wanted you to come on today. I mean, sure, you do amazing things like adventure races around the world. But I think the most important conversation that can be had with Sonja Wieck
Yep.
is about how you were able to heal yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, because people don't want to talk about that because there's shame in that. So I just want to say to you, thank you for being vulnerable with us.
Yeah.
In this. I really appreciate that, Sonja.
It's kind of, I'm realizing my superpower.
Yeah.
Like, the one thing that I have found really easy is to talk about in detail what it felt like, looked like, tasted like, smelled like and I think it is because I'm so physically tough that there's such a dichotomy between my toughness levels. And I find that fascinating and almost like, well, that can't exactly be my fault, you know? Like,
right. Yeah.
So once I got on the other side of that, like, oh, fascinating. I am so physically tough and so emotionally fragile and so spiritually non-existent. What is that about? Once I could kind of get that view of it, the vulnerability became easier because now we're just talking about phenomenons, you know? Before it was like so personal. It came from this, I'm clearly not enough place.
Right.
Now it's coming from this more like, isn't that fascinating? And how was that perpetuated through our culture? And how should people have taken care of me? And how can I take care of others? It's, the dialogue has changed now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. So as you've shifted what toughness means to you. And I'm really glad that I had the foresight to ask that question at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because your answer revealed so much. It doesn't have anything to do with like how many hours you can stay awake.
No.
You know, or how many mountains you can climb. But as you've shifted that, how has your enoughness shifted?
I think I've recognized that my enoughness is a journey. I'm never going to feel enough all the time, every day. It's more a practice in recognizing what's coming up today, where I would rather be, and kind of understanding the disconnect on a daily basis. There are going to be triggers in my environment that constantly allow me confirmation bias towards not enoughness. You know, if I'm in that place of not feeling it, I'm going to be able to find examples around me every day. And that's a litmus test for me. So I think my journey with enoughness is a daily one. Right now, my journey is really focused on the spiritual side of things. As a big thing I noticed contributing to my not enoughness was this sort of horizontal living. I think of it as like the earthly living, you know, like we walk around on the ground, right? And I didn't ever have this concept of the vertical. I was raised, my background with spirituality was pretty funky, and I kind of came out of it all going, it's all hogwash.
Yeah.
Just because there were some religions and they didn't connect and it was confusing. And so now coming to this place of opening myself up to, wait a second, there's a spacesuit. There's a operating system that runs the spacesuit, and then there's the dude inside the spacesuit. And for a long time, I thought, I'm just the spacesuit and the operating system. I'm just the body and the mind working in unison to achieve things on Earth. And so now I'm entertaining this concept of like, holy moly, I've got a soul inside here. It's totally content if I just want to run around as the spacesuit and the operating system on the Earth and achieve things. Like it will just watch and be stoked for me that I had a blast here on Earth. But I'm going through a lot of pain, and this pain is related to not being satisfied. And the minute I start to tap into the person inside the spacesuit, that soul being, that vertically connected spiritual side, suddenly I feel like quite enough. Yeah. I feel like it all matters and doesn't matter all at once. And I feel more expansive and in control of my experience. So that has showed me like, okay, you don't really know what you're doing, Sonja.
That's okay.
And that's okay. But there's a world here that I think has some answers. And that's where I've been the last couple of years, is exploring that side. And looking at my gifts in that context. Like, wait, that's where it came from. Like, wait a second, my spacesuit is like baller. I have like the best spacesuit. And so what's that about? Like, why did my soul come here with such an awesome spacesuit? What did it want to do? Like, where did it want to go? What did it want to do while it's here? So reframing and getting back to asking the right entity, the right questions, and how I do that when I'm just like floating around figuring it all out here, that's been the current journey, and it's been really fun. It's been really fun.
I love that. And when you were talking about your daily practice of enoughness, it just reminded me, like, I feel like we like to think of being enough as like a black and white thing. Like,
Exactly.
either I am or I'm not. But there's a duality to that where I can say I am enough today, right now, and there is still more that I want.
That's right.
And there are still ways that I can be more of who I am, and allowing that duality, as hard as it is for our human minds to accept that, allowing that is the practice of enoughness, I think.
I would agree. I would agree. Yeah. It's the concept of you have two palms. Like, we have two palms. We were given two palms, two sides to our body. And that's because we were meant to hold multiple things at once.
I love that. I have never heard that before.
It's really easy for us to get in one line thinking, or to think that because I feel this way, I can't also feel this way too. But, our two palms are really meant to hold the duality in our life equally weighted, and to move with that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, it was not by accident that we didn't really talk at all about your adventures in Fiji, because if people are curious, they can watch the show.
Yeah.
And you now have a podcast all about your adventures and the other competitors as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. One thing I realized in Fiji was, Amazon did a really great job of sort of curating 330 amazing athletes. And the show is 10 episodes. So I knew pretty quickly that all 66 teams weren't going to be featured in the show, and that their stories weren't going to be told. And I had such a transformative experience during the race that I just wanted to talk to everybody about that experience and ask, like, what did you figure out about yourself when you were out there? And what was the hard parts for you? And how did you progress through them? And what did that tell you about your own life and how you need to move forward? And that was my biggest question coming home from the race. So that's what I built. I built Tales of Toughness, the podcast. You can find it anywhere out there in the podcast land, to have these in-depth conversations with athletes around their race experience, but then also those deeper, juicy nuggets. And these conversations have been beacons of light in my life. Every conversation I have, I come away with like a new stepping stone for myself, a new awareness based on the experiences that other people got in the race. And there's a universality when we're talking about what resonated with us and what we learned about ourselves. There's a universal nature to that kind of discussion like we're having today.
100%. And you know what I love about it is that even for us mere mortals who will never be, racing at Kona or, doing the world's toughest race, wherever it might be, those universal concepts come through.
Yeah.
Like we can still own those ourselves and find that truth as we listen to other people. And I'm just so grateful that you are doing this and that you're stepping into your purpose and your being and your story and really using that for good.
Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. I'm on the path.
Well, so really quick before we end, I always ask all of my guests what your inner voice is telling you these days, and I'm really curious to hear what yours has to say.
Oh, my inner voice is in such a place of expansion. And the biggest thing it's telling me is to stay patient, just to stay patient. There's a lot of flux happening in my life right now and a lot of new people coming in and having an impact on me. And I can get a little bit rushed or a little impatient. And so, yeah, my inner voice continues to say every day when I wake up, hey, Sonja, let's stay patient today. Let's just allow what is, process it, remain patient. Like everything will unfold in due time.
I love that. That's a lesson I can apply to myself right now also.
Yeah.
You can tell your inner voice I said thank you.
Okay, well.
Sonja, thank you so much for being in my life.
Thank you,
and
Kelly.
Being in this world and being you. I appreciate you.
I love you so much, and thanks for having me on today.
Here's my question for you today. Are you enough? Are you enough for you? Are you owning that you are enough? It is only when we do that that we can also be tough. They go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other, truly, in a holistic way. And I hope that your takeaway from this is that you are enough, no matter what, no matter how many medals you have on your wall, no matter how many degrees you have, no matter how much money you have in your bank account, no matter what you weigh, no matter what, you are enough right now. And the practice of that is daily work. My friends, it's daily. It is daily work. And so I just want to encourage you to create a habit of your enoughness, of acknowledging your worthiness each and every day. What does that look like for you? What do you need to do to remind yourself daily that you are worthy and that you are enough? If you struggle with these kinds of habits, with habits that you know what I mean, that you know deep inside that you need, but that you don't always follow through with, or maybe you're not really sure what it should look like or how it should feel, then I would encourage you to come to this month's Habits Workshop. The Create the Life You Want workshop is all about you connecting with your inner voice and listening to what your inner voice has to say to you about what you need to be doing daily to remind yourself that you are enough. And also the toughness piece comes in, right? Because we need habits that generate toughness as well. And all of these can be found by connecting with your inner voice. And in my Habits Workshop, I take you through a process where you can get quiet and you can get still and you can understand what you most need to support yourself. So I encourage you to check it out this month. The link to register is kellycover.com/habits. And this month is September. We're coming up on the date of this September 27th, but that link is always good, either for the current workshop or for the workshop waitlist. So go ahead on over there no matter when you're listening, and be sure to check out Create Life You Want, a Habits workshop. I would love for you to be there. And here's your reminder from me. You are enough. When you honor your enoughness, that allows you to show up fully as you. You don't have to hide anything. You can be you, and you are worthy.